The World's Fair of 1893 in Chicago was a symbol of progress, innovation, and modernity. Millions of people flocked to the city, eager to witness the marvels of the future. But just a few miles away from the Grand Fairgrounds, something far darker was happening. H. Holmes, a charming and well-spoken man, had been luring victims into his three-story building, now infamous as the Murder Castle. It was here, behind the facade of a hotel, that Holmes would become one of America's first documented serial killers. His reign of terror would claim dozens, possibly even hundreds of lives. Born as Herman Webster Mugget in 1861, Holmes' early life offered little hint of the horror to come. He was intelligent and showed promise in school, eventually pursuing a career in medicine. But beneath the surface, he was fascinated with death and deception. After changing his name to Henry Howard Holmes, he began a life marked by fraud, scams, and cruelty. In 1886, Holmes moved to Chicago, where he found opportunity in the chaos of the growing city. With his sharp mind and silver tongue, he charmed his way into a position as a pharmacist. Soon, he acquired a drugstore and then set his sights on much larger projects, the construction of a hotel. But this was no ordinary hotel. Holmes personally oversaw the design of his three-story building, which he intended to open in time for the World's Fair. It had dozens of rooms, secret passages, soundproof chambers, and even trapdoors, but it wasn't designed for comfort or luxury. It was built for murder. Holmes was creating a twisted labyrinth where his victims would disappear without a trace. As tourists flooded into Chicago for the fair, many were drawn to Holmes' hotel by promises of cheap rooms. Once inside, some guests would never leave. Holmes preyed on young women who had come to the city for work or excitement, offering them a place to stay or even jobs at his hotel. He used his charm to gain their trust, but once they were inside the halls of the Murder Castle, their fate was sealed. The hotel was a nightmarish place. Some rooms were outfitted with gas lines that allowed Holmes to suffocate his victims while they slept. Others were designed with airtight walls to silence their screams. Secret shots led from the upper floors to the basement, where Holmes would dispose of the bodies, often selling skeletons to medical schools or cremating them in a hidden furnace. Holmes was meticulous and calculating, keeping careful records of his many scams. He took out life insurance policies on his victims, profiting not only from their deaths but also from their remains. His crimes went undetected for years, but no one suspecting that the mild-mannered hotel owner was hiding such horrors behind the walls of his building. Holmes' web of deceit eventually began to unravel, not because of his murders, but because of his scams. His greed led him to defraud one too many people, and his business dealings caught the attention of the law. In 1894, he fled Chicago with a close associate, Benjamin Pitzel, to continue his schemes elsewhere. However, Holmes had no loyalty to anyone. He murdered Pitzel and then came up with an elaborate story to explain his death, even manipulating Pitzel's wife and children. It was the investigation into Pitzel's disappearance that would eventually bring Holmes to justice. Pinkerton detectives were hired to track him down, and he was finally arrested in Boston in November 1894. At first, Authorities believed they had merely caught a con artist, but as they dug deeper into his past, they uncovered the true extent of his crimes. Holmes was tried and convicted for murders of Benjamin Pitzel, but by the time of his trial, the full horror of what had happened in the murder castle was coming to light. During his confession, Holmes admitted to killing 27 people, though the actual number of his victims is believed to be far higher. Some estimates suggest he may have killed as many as 200. On May 7, 1996, H. Holmes was hanged for his crimes. Even in his final moments, he remained calm, showing no remorse for the lives he had taken. His execution marked the end of a reign of terror that had haunted Chicago and shocked the nation. Holmes' story is one of deception, cruelty, and greed, fueled by a terrifying lack of empathy for his victims. His murder castle became a symbol of evil, lurking behind a mask of respectability, a cautionary tale of how easily appearances can deceive. Though the building was eventually torn down, the memory of what happened there lives on, forever linked to one of America's most chilling serial killers. H. Holmes was a man who used his intelligence for destruction, luring the innocent into his trap. The legacy of his crimes reminds us of the darkness that can hide within even the most trusted figures, and how those who seek power over others can leave a lasting mark on history long after they are gone.